Hey guys, welcome back. Patrick here. This week I asked who we should be reviewing, and you guys had amazing suggestions. Thank you so much if you took the time to write a comment in the community post. So there were a couple companies that stood out. The first one is C3AI. This one I still need to learn a little bit more about the industry, so give me more time. But the other company I know a little bit more of the industry is SEAH, which is going to be merging with Betway, and that's what we're going to review today. This is a gambling company. They're very present around the world, but they don't have a big presence in the US yet. So is it going to be a good buy or not? That's what we're going to look into today. Let's get started. Alright guys, before I dive into this company specifically, I need to talk about the gambling industry and what I'm looking for. What, in my opinion, makes for a winning play versus an average play in this industry. There's two main things. The first one is the total addressable market right now in the entire world is going to be expanding drastically over the next few years. However, that is mostly because of the North American market. Let's be totally honest. So the gambling industry is already present throughout the world, right? So you have the UK, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, that's for Europe. You have South Africa, that's a good market. Australia, all of those companies are already saturated with iGaming and online sports books. So there's going to be some growth over the next few years, but not nearly as much as in North America and to a certain extent South America. Brazil is one of the big markets, right? But on a dollar figure, it is really all about the US and these states opening up. So we want companies that can actually do well in the US market and actually do better possibly than companies like FanDuel, Draftkings, and MGM, and to a certain extent also PENN National Gaming. So if this company can do that, then they'll be really good. If they can't, then they're going to be okay, but not nearly as good. The second point, which kind of is linked to the first one, is we need companies that have a wide funnel that can actually convert players into this niche industry. So that is what sets companies like MGM, but also DraftKings and FanDuel apart, is that they have a huge amount of players in their database, and then they're converting them to players in their online sports books and also in their casino. So that's what I'm worried about right ahead of time, right? This was the exact same problem that GNOG is having, is that they might do okay, but acquiring players is going to be much more difficult for them. So let's dive into the actual presentation, see what they're saying to answer these questions. When you look at this company, you can clearly see that they have a lot of expertise and they are mature. It is an established company. It's not a startup by any means. They have presence in 23 different jurisdictions and they're working on 13 more, including the US, which we'll talk about in a minute. But just to give you guys a scale of how big this company is, they handle $42 billion wagers per year and they have 2.5 million monthly active users. So how does that compare? Well, we can look at DraftKings numbers. They reported that in December, right, they had 1.5 million for their sportsbook. Now, why is Betway so much cheaper than DraftKings then if they have more users per month? So that is a plus for Betway, Supergroup, right? Well, the downside is that DraftKings has 5 million paid users in their daily fantasy sports. So as I was talking about earlier, their database is massive. So there's an expectation they're going to grow a lot faster than this company. So I still think that this is very good for Betway. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, right? It's just that it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to penetrate this market when there's already big players that have all these customers in their database. Now, the plus side, though, is that they're so well diversified worldwide. So they're not dependent on any one country, right? And they're not really at risk of the regulations. If one country decided, hey, we're just going to shut down online gaming, well, you still have all the other countries. So 48% in the Americas, that's mostly Latin America, Africa 12%, Europe 21%, and then rest of the world 18%. So that is very good for Betway Supergroup. However, if you look at it, this is what I was talking about. The US market is the big prize. That's why everyone's going to be fighting over it. 53 billion is going to be the TAM over the next several years. I think it's by 2027, right? And compare that with, let's say, Brazil, which is only a $1 billion market, even though they have 211 million population. Well, that is because Americans have more disposable income and it is a better market overall. I mean, it is the way it is. The US is the biggest market for gambling in the world, except for maybe China, but we don't really have access to that. So let's talk about the all-important US market and what their strategy is going to be. So they're going to merge with DGC, company that makes games for the online casinos, which already has some licenses, and that's what they're going to start with. Now, the problem I have with that, and I hope I made it clear throughout the video, is that the top three has already saturated these markets big time. Like, they're throwing money at them. You guys have seen the Draftkings ads on the Super Bowl. You guys probably see all the FanDuel billboards everywhere. Well, they're literally losing money acquiring these customers, right? So they'll give you a bet for $100, you pay $1, and if you lose, they give you your money back. But if you win, you gain the $100. So they are literally losing through acquiring these players. So when you have these newcomers that are going to come into these markets, well, all of the easy targets have already been acquired. So now they're going to have to spend so much money to acquire them and really pull them from the grasp of the top three. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means you need to be conscious that it's going to be very difficult for them to gain market share in those states. Now, as new ones open up, it's going to be a little bit more of a level playing field, right? They might be able to open in the first couple of months, and then the cost of acquisition is going to be a lot cheaper. So just keep that in mind. Like, keep your expectations lower, and this, in my opinion, is going to affect their growth rate. So they're not going to just come into these markets and become the #1 leader right away by any means. So this compares a lot more with Golden Nugget Online, RSI, than with, let's say, FanDuel or Draftkings or even MGM. Right, so if we look at their strategy for doing that, and this is where they haven't really talked about it a lot in the presentation, like what's going to set them apart? How are they going to pull in all of these players? Well, they do mention that they can usually, traditionally, through their expertise in the other states, in the other countries, they managed to bring their gross gaming revenue from 175 per month, right, in the first month, to 1.75 per month in 24 months. So 10.3x growth in those markets. So some of the things that they do is they want to partner with a lot of different sports teams and all of that to give them visibility. Color me skeptical, right? Again, it can be done. They are going to get a certain market share. Just don't think that they're going to be one of the top three. And because of that, it is going to hurt their growth. They still will get some growth from the US market, but it's not going to be as high. Their funnel for generating players is just much smaller than the other companies. For those of you still around, I'm going to give you the reasons why you would want to invest in this company. So yes, I'm skeptical about their growth, but that doesn't mean the company has no redeeming qualities. And they do, right? The fact that they're well diversified, they have expertise, is very, very solid, right? There's a premium for that. It's just that their growth is not necessarily going to be as high, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to grow. Look at this report from the Edison Group. I've shown it in some of the videos before. This is from 2019, so some of the numbers are going to be a little outdated, but the logic behind it remains. Right, so this is for Europe. Look at how many companies are fighting for customers over there. It is a very fragmented market, right? So you have tons of companies, some of which have been absorbed already. We'll talk about that in a second, like William Hill, right? If you look at the market caps for these companies, they range from a few hundred millions to several $billion. If you look at Flutter Entertainment, one of the biggest gambling companies in the world, at the time in 2019, their market cap was a little over £5 billion, I believe, right? However, now it is much higher than that. They've grown tremendously since then. Well, the same thing may happen with Betway. There's absolutely nothing stopping it from growing in the next few years. Might not be at the same rate as, let's say, Draftkings, but Draftkings valuation is already much higher, right? So even if the growth rate is smaller, they're still going to do really well. The other aspect you want to look at is the dividend yield, which is very, very common in European iGaming companies. In 2019, the average was 6%, right? So throughout all of them. So some of them are going to be a little higher, some of them are going to be a little bit lower. And this, in my opinion, is like the sneaky play that no one is going to see coming. This is like, no one's really talking about this. The fact that, let's say that you buy into Betway right now, and they're not going to offer a dividend right now. Same for Draftkings. You're not going to get a dividend out of them. MGM is a small one, and I do think it's going to grow over the next few years, but for now, I can't really call it a dividend play or anything. However, if you look at these, 6%, well, these are going to be companies that over time, when they mature, they are probably going to give a dividend, right? Once the market is like complete and they're generating a lot of revenues and profits, they're going to bring this back to the shareholders. So if you buy into this company, let's say at $10, and eventually in the future it's at $20 and they offer a 6% dividend yield, well, your yield is really 12%. Right, so this is a very sneaky play. It might or might not happen, but that's what I'm counting on. That's one of the reasons why I like casino companies, and I'm kind of positioning myself now for the future, right? Eventually, if I want to just get that passive income, well, a lot of it might come from these plays. All right, so this is the other one. This is a very fragmented industry, as we were talking about. So there's a lot of merger and acquisitions. Nothing says that this company won't be acquired in the future, especially if they make inroads in the US or by a company like MGM, right? That is very located in the US and really wants to expand worldwide. Well, they could do that through acquiring a company like this. They've tried to merge with Flutter before, or Entain rather. So nothing says that this company won't be acquired in the future, and you're going to see a lot of growth in your share price through that. Again, all of those are speculations. They may or may not happen, but that's the way I see it. Those are the upsides for this company. They can acquire other companies or they can be acquired. Alright guys, final thoughts for this review. First, I have a guaranteed offer for you. If you deposit $500 in your SoFi account, you are going to make $50 profit. That is the best bet you can make. It is guaranteed. Now, if we stick with this company, what do I think about it? I think it's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't see any red flags. They have a lot of expertise. They're well established. And your risks of losing like 25, 50% are very close to zero. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just for fun. This is just my opinion. But I feel like your risk versus reward is pretty decent. Now, would I sell my shares of MGM and the other companies to get into this one? Or if you have Win or Draftkings, should you sell to get into this one? Personally, I'm not going to do that, right? But if I didn't have any exposure to this industry, I mean, there wouldn't be nothing wrong with buying these shares close to $10 and riding it for the long term. Now, I don't think it's going to be the best company for short-term momentum plays. All of these companies have been beat up over the past couple of months, and, you know, there's just not a lot going for them in the short term. However, for long term, like if you want to add it to your portfolio and just sit on it for 5-10 years, then there's nothing wrong with it. And as I mentioned, one of the big upside is going to be at some point, I'm pretty sure they're going to give a dividend. So guys, let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Are you going to get into this company? Did you get into them already? What do you think? How do you think it compares with the other companies? Let me know. I'll see you guys later.